Hi, I'm here to talk to you today. Hi, this is Margie Carhart, and I'd like to talk to you today about a new project I want to try in my English 2 class. I call it Research and Visual Literacy. All English 2 classes at my high school have been required to teach the research paper, and my students have done this for the last 20 years. Unfortunately, this isn't a very exciting unit for my students, and I've tried various ways to make them more engaged in this unit. I've done project-based learning. I've done projects about making our school better, making our community better, helping teenagers fight typical teenage issues and navigate those issues. We've tried a lot of different ways to make this engaging for them. And a lot of the times they're just not engaged in this project, but I think adding a visual component, an interactive component, can help this project become more engaging and more relevant to my students. We have a couple of targets that we have to hit in English 2 during this unit. It's writing arguments to support claims and writing clear and coherent essays which develop and organize and communicate clearly according to the task, purpose, and audience. But I was thinking, this research paper is so dreaded that we should add a digital component to it to make them more engaged. So making use of these digital media, for example, making a website, could make this project more exciting for them. It's interesting, the group of kids that I have to work with for this unit. In my school, we have decided, based on certain data points, to push most students into the honors level track. So while most students are in honors level English, there's a very small percentage of students in the regular English 2 curriculum. These are kids who many of whom are going to college, but may not be the highest in their class. Many of the students who I have in this class are non-compliant students. They don't like school. But that doesn't mean they're bad kids or they're bad students. They just don't play the game of school. So anything I can do to make this unit more attractive to them would be a plus. So with this group of kids in mind, I was thinking about what we learned in our class this semester. And some of those videos from the Toledo Museum of Art really struck a chord with me. In one of the videos, it said that the leading researchers, educators, and professionals, even filmmakers and artists, believe that being fluent in visual language can improve people's creativity, their critical thinking, their achievement, even their empathy toward other people. And when I was thinking about, the state of our world today, these are exactly the qualities that I would love to build into my students, regardless of their path to college or not to college. I was reading some other articles about the skills that kids will need as they enter the workforce, and LinkedIn argues that some of the main skills employers are looking for are creativity and analytical thinking. And these are 2 skills, of course, that visual literacy enhances and develops. So I was thinking about the old way we have done this research paper. Students really don't like it. They've written a research paper freshman year. They think they're repeating the same process. They find it boring. They can't find a topic they're interested in. They don't have an authentic audience for whom they're writing this paper. So the whole project seems kind of irrelevant to them. But when I was thinking about making a new unit for them, when I thought about adding visual literacy and digital literacy, I really thought about how this unit could become, an authentic experience for them. They can choose a topic that's meaningful to them and communicate it to an audience that will actually interact with the work that they've done instead of just, writing an essay for the teacher again. So that got me really excited. I was thinking about as well the visual principles that would drive my instruction and the goals for this unit. In reading Pedersen, his 2010 discussion on these design information guidelines, I really keyed into his ideas of these functional design principles. He talked about how people need to know how to define the problem, to provide structure, to communicate what they want to communicate, and to provide clarity. It's very similar to understanding the rhetorical situation in a verbal message. So similarly, in a visual message, students need to understand that rhetorical situation. What is a problem that they have? Who are the senders? Who are the receivers? What is that audience like? The designer has to provide structure to facilitate perception, interpretation, understanding, learning, and even memory. So making a clear message through these visual cues and in designing an interactive digital platform is really crucial to these students' growth and to making a message relevant to an audience. What really helps with this, of course, is that my school has gone one-to-one this year. All of these sophomore students have touchscreen Chromebooks that also have keyboards. We have classroom projectors, and most importantly at times, I think, is the fact that we have a strong Wi-Fi. In the past years, we have had a lot of experience with Wi-Fi signals being dropped, in the middle of showing a video or doing a presentation. Students wouldn't be able to see the screen. That screen internet connection would just be cut out for some reason, which I don't know all the ins and outs of that. So I'm excited about that. So the process that I go through with the kids is, understanding what effective design is, what effective research is. And as we look at some websites together, I love to create a rubric along with them. Instead of just handing them a rubric, we create it together on the board. So after looking at a few websites, we decide together what are the best qualities of that website, and we look at things like the quality of writing, the way the layout and the design can communicate different ideas, can show research, and in that case, we come up with our rubric together. Once that's done, we really dive into narrowing the topic and learning about evaluating sources. I want one of the components of this interactive website, of course, to be visual images. So you may find a nice graph like this Facebook graph shows, but where does that information come from? Not only how was the research done, but who did that research, and is it from a reliable source? So these are the basic research questions that we go through anyway, but doing it with a visual media makes it even more interesting. After we evaluate sources, we go ahead and dive into research. And these students will have to do research not only for verbal information, for quoting from experts and data, but incorporating visual research. So that's where, like, for example, this picture from the Fukushima nuclear flowers comes in. Is this a good visual image that communicates something? What does that image communicate? So asking my students to evaluate visually how this information can help their website is a good step in in creating this new product that I want them to create. And then, of course, they need to design the website. So taking into consideration some of those visual principles of balance, of space, of emphasis, of entry point, we need to make this website a really strong communicator to the audience that they have. So if my students choose to write about and investigate mental disorders in teenagers, in anxiety and depression, their website can be really effective in doing that in a number of ways. They can have a primary entry point, they can have their home page, then they could have their subpoints that talk about all the different research that they've done. What's really important in designing this website, and I like to use Google Sites with them, is that they are really clear, they're very simple, and they emphasize on different levels what the research has found. Sometimes students like to put in a ton of pictures, kind of overdo it, and too many words, when really we need to have a balance of visual and verbal. So with these little subpages, it breaks out the different topics that they've worked on, and then they contribute as well, not only to the verbal research that they found, but I want them to add these visual touches, like this bar graph on the bottom that talks about the prevalence of mental and substance use disorder in different countries. So this kind of marriage between the old and the new, between the verbal and the visual, can really enhance the communication that they do. So once they really work with that website, marry the two, the verbal and the visual, then they just work through revising that website to the point where they're really communicating what they want to communicate. Do they want to communicate a problem solution? Do they want to communicate an argument in emphatic order? Depending on their audience and their topic, these visual websites and interactive websites will look different. So I love that piece, that not every student will have the same product. While they'll all be research papers, they're all going to look different depending on the topic. Of course, I always do revision with them. We do some peer editing using the rubric that we came up with together. And eventually, I would really like for them to put it all together and do a screencast where they explain all the different pieces of their website and how they used visual literacy to help communicate what they wanted to communicate. So once they're all done with this project, I've come up with a unit assessment evaluation so I can get some feedback from them to help me make the unit better the next time around. So some of the questions will ask the students to measure how well they've learned these targeted skills. Have they researched and answered a research question with relevant and sufficient information? And then also I want to ask them if their digital literacy helped them in this unit. And we can take a look at one of these evaluations. Do you feel the learning you did was authentic and meaningful? How did Google Sites help you communicate your research findings? And what challenges did this unit present to you? So on and so forth. And after they answer this, I can then curate this information and take it back and make the unit stronger the next time. So as I go back to my presentation and I'm finishing up, I'm kind of thinking that I've bit off maybe a little bit more than I can chew. This is a huge unit, but I do have some time to work with them, and we'll see how it goes.